With most of the Uncle Toby stars eliminated yesterday, Trevor Hendy was expected to have an easy passage through to the final. But to everyone's astonishment, Hendy crossed the line in 8th spot, missing the cut by 1. Almost instantly he lodged a protest, and after a 45-minute argument, officials upheld his complaint.
One of the other competitors accidentally pushed me into the ground and fell over me and sort of stood on me and everything else, and it wasn't intentional, and the judges saw that and saw that 3 or 4 seconds it cost me meant that I didn't get out in the ski, and I ended up going from that lead pack to coming 8th, and so knowing that it wasn't intentional, they let us both through, which was good.
And there were no shortage of people claiming Hendy's profile forced the judge's hand in allowing a 15-man final.
No, mate, that's a very controversial point. I don't know. I don't think so. I think he's a true champion and he's a strong charactered guy, and I don't think he would not have protested if he didn't think he had a fair argument. And I think looking at it, he had a very fair argument.
I'll be walking around with a smile on my face for the rest of the carnival, that's for sure.
Clint Robinson won the second qualifier, with Darren Mercer and state champion Drew Blatchford also making the cut. Coogin star Murray Cox, who got a start after Craig Riddington's disqualification, finished at the rear of the field. All the high-profile ladies competitors made it through their semis. Unfortunately, Swansea's Melissa Thurlow failed to qualify. The ladies could be in for a rough time though tomorrow. Their events so far have been held at the protected end of the beach, but tomorrow will be transferred closer to the punishing sandbar, where the waves again wreaked havoc with the surf boats today. The Anglesey crew from southern Victoria were belted around and their sweep thrown overboard. While they were regrouping, they were hit again. The sweep pushed under the boat and then hit on the head with an oar. The semi-conscious 46-year-old was dragged from the water and taken to hospital with head injuries. His crew was then eliminated and will miss tomorrow morning's finals that start at 8:45. The Lochinvar course is still looking fairly fresh despite the number of horses that have trampled over the circuit. The course is designed with one purpose in mind: to test the character of rider and horse. The jumps are created often with an optical illusion, so they look harder than what they really are, and that's where the human-horse relationship fails or shines through. If the horse refuses to take on a jump 3 times, they're disqualified. The Lochinvar event is regarded as an unofficial Australian Championship. The final events will be held tomorrow. Uncle Toby's newcomer Joshua Blair from Swansea won gold in the under-18 Ironman. Adam Tobin, also from the host club, performed well in the under-16s. In fact, the area did quite well in the iron events. The trophy cabinet at Swansea will be bursting after they took out the 6-man R&R event, and a well-deserved medal for Sean Davis and Graham Burge in the rescue board. Burge later became the club hero, taking out the board event ahead of a star-packed lineup. The area's other gold went to Terrigal beach sprinter Veronica Lee.
The celebrations began with a special service at the St Demetrius Church in Hamilton. On the 25th of March 1821, the Greeks declared their freedom from the Ottoman Empire after a long history of warfare with the Turks. Outside the church, children dressed in national costume watched as special guests, including Lord Mayor John McNaughton, laid wreaths at the Greek community cenotaph in memory of those who lost their lives for their country. Celebrations will continue tonight with a special National Day dance.
Seven months ago, selectors named 16 players in each age division from 12s to 15s to train through the summer for this year's State Age Championships. But while they've all trained together since the end of last season, the pressure to move through to the next stage forced them to become pretty competitive.
I think it's in any sport. You know, they're all mates, but when it comes down to them, they all want their position.
The under-15s have a little extra pressure to perform though. A good showing at the representative carnivals could gain them a place in the state talent squad. And in Wollongong last night, the Newcastle Falcons failed to turn their talents into a winning score. They lost to the Illawarra Hawks for the second time this week. While there were flashes of individual brilliance, the Falcons have now lost 3 of their 9 pre-season games.
The woman and her daughter, travelling in a four-wheel drive utility, skidded into the path of the right-turning CM school bus just outside the village this morning. The crash badly damaged the utility, snapping its bull bar and pushing the bus backwards into another car. Luckily, there were no children on the bus at the time of the crash. None of the drivers involved was seriously injured. Last Thursday, a 9-year-old boy was dragged along the road only kilometres from the scene of the latest crash after his school bag got snagged on the bus as it pulled away.
In Newcastle local court today, 54-year-old Patricia Beatrice Howden pleaded guilty to the charge of public mischief. Magistrate Colin Elliott said this meant Mrs Howden had caused police to carry out an investigation unnecessarily. The investigation relates to the withdrawal in November last year of $14,000 from a bank account jointly held by Mrs Howden and her husband Richard, whose decomposed body was found in a dam near Dungog on December 14th last year. In a statement of facts tendered to the court, police said in January this year Mrs Howden had forwarded a letter to them suggesting she had no knowledge of the withdrawals and wanted that information passed on to police as it may assist with the murder investigation. This led police to believe Mr Howden may have had a large sum of money on him before his death and directed their murder inquiry on a different tangent. Following further investigations, police found Mrs Howden had lied, that some 3 weeks before her husband's body was found in a dam near Dungog, she had personally withdrawn $14,000 from the couple's joint bank account. On one occasion, she had taken out $12,500, signing Mr Howden's name on the withdrawal forms. Mrs Howden's defence, Peter Cummings, said at the time this event occurred, "My client had been going through a bad patch. She had suffered the loss of her husband in extreme circumstances and was being treated for a nervous disorder." Mr Cummings added that his client, a mother of 3, had made a poor decision to lie. The magistrate placed Mrs Howden on a 2-year $2,000 good behaviour bond. He also fined her an extra $546 and ordered her to pay $2,953, the cost of the police investigation. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Thousands of troops have filed through the Singleton base over the decades, but none would have had it better than the new and future recruits who'll serve there. The $30 million Stage 1 works has taken 5 years to complete from planning and has brought a gradual renewal of barracks, administration and teaching areas. The redevelopment was opened by Lieutenant General John Gray, the Army's Chief of General Staff. He first served at the base as an Army cadet living in a tent in the 1950s.
There's been a change in Army's attitude to the way it looks after its soldiers, and while we've kept the team spirit going, the facilities are significantly better for them, and there's more privacy than there used to be.
The project brings a welcome injection of funds to the local economy.
Some $20 million of disposable income is used here in Singleton itself, and that's a fairly substantial amount of money to be put into the commercial life of Singleton.
But the next $50 million stage of replacing old barracks and facilities at the base has been postponed indefinitely. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
The new manager came in from the dark today after officially being awarded the job this morning. And 30-year-old Brad Mellon says he won't be pushing his weight around with coaching staff or selectors.
I don't intend to get involved in the running and the coaching of the football side of the business. That's left up to a very capable coaching staff, and my job is to create the right environment for them.
And the players could be in for a few changes as well. David Mullane, in only his second game back from injury, busted his shoulder again and will need a complete reconstruction, effectively ending his Winfield Cup career. And Captain Mark Sargent will have an arthroscope on his knee tonight, but doctors believe the injury isn't serious, possibly cartilage damage.
Had been travelling west along Nowen Dock Road when their Datsun sedan left the road and collided with a tree. The driver was killed instantly. The car and the semi collided, causing the sedan to leave the road and overturn. The driver of the truck was uninjured. The sedan's 3 occupants, all from Newcastle, weren't as lucky.
4 people have been killed on northern roads in the week leading up to the Easter break. In an effort to stop further deaths, police have set up an education display at Newcastle's Garden City shopping centre to teach people how to avoid trouble. Police are telling shoppers to plan their journey, take regular breaks and not to speed.
Slow down, be careful. If you feel tired, pull over, have a rest. There'll be plenty of driver reviver stops along the highway, and just take your time.
But the most effective lesson came from the montage of some of the vehicle crashes that have occurred in the north. This included a full-scale example of what happens to a car when it crashes at high speed. And if those warnings don't stop them, this will, with police to be out in numbers to catch people who refuse to slow down. Operation Torres starts in the early hours of Thursday with a special emphasis on people not wearing seatbelts. Richard O'Leary, NBN News. Sunday's humiliating loss to Canberra was made more painful by the injury of Mark Sargent. He tore ligaments in his knee, forcing him out of the side for at least 2 weeks. Sargent's departure has opened the door for teammate Robbie McCormack, who'll wear the title of captain for the first time.
It's a pretty good feeling being named as captain, you know, it's a fair buzz, and I've been here since day one, it's a real bonus.
I believe he's probably playing the best football of his career and is on a high at the moment. I think that can only enhance his chances of playing well.
Waite says the team is relatively injury-free, although Paul Harrigan appeared to be still troubled by his back injury at training this afternoon. Despite last week's loss, David Waite has named a virtually unchanged side for the night's vital clash against Manly at Marathon Stadium. Nathan Barnes and Brad Godden have switched positions, Crowe comes in to replace Sargent, and Butterfield moves to the front row. The Knights are confident they can topple the Red Hot Eagles, but they expect it to be tough.
Well, it's going to be hard. Like, we come off a fair loss and they come off a big win, so it's going to be up to us to lift, and losing Sarge for the couple of weeks or whatever isn't going to help our cause at all.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Now that the initial excitement of winning the 2000 Olympics has waned, the hard work has just begun. In an effort to be part of the 6-year preparations, the Hunter Region Association of Councils has released a discussion paper on the blocks.
Basically says that if we work as a region, we have more opportunities than if we work as a group of individual councils.
Newcastle Council's General Manager Bill Grant believes it's the area's world-class sporting facilities, Lochinvar's Equestrian Centre and Newcastle's international hockey fields that could best entice overseas competitors to train in the Hunter. And there are other ideas, including opening our hearts and homes to host athletes.
And they will either come either on a nation basis or on a sport basis. So, for instance, if it was hockey, they might come here. They may even be involved with sailing or equestrian events.
The report will be discussed at next month's HRAC meeting. Along with community input, it's hoped a united strategy will soon be presented to the Olympic Committee.
This plant at Cessnock rates special mention in the EPA report. During dry weather, the flow in nearby Black Creek is almost entirely effluent from the facility. The plant is one of 10 identified. Others include Morpeth, which is reportedly handling 80% more sewage than it was designed to, Curry, Raymond Terrace and Madawi. While the EPA is pleased with Hunter Water's progress on the coast, Director Brian Gilligan says much more needs to be done in the valley.
We're concerned that work still needs to be done on the inland one, particularly because of nutrients that are being discharged into tributaries that have low flow and unreliable amounts of dilution.
Head of Hunter Water, David Evans, says the corporation has been working with the EPA for the last 6 months, trying to determine the most viable way of improving the situation before the year 2000. While he admits some of the facts contained in the report may be disturbing, he says the corporation does not have a major problem.
We have difficulties which we need to address over time, but they're not major short-term environmental problems. All those plants are licensed by the EPA and have been for some time, and they all comply with those licences.
It's estimated in this report that around $62 million would need to be spent to bring the valley's treatment plants up to EPA standard. It even goes as far as to detail the possible cost of the improvements to the consumer. The EPA estimates households may have to pay between $8 and $24 extra a year.
While Murray vowed to keep quiet on coalition policy after his resignation as Deputy Premier last May. But that silence has been broken by the proposal to create uniform daylight saving in Tasmania, South Australia, Victoria and New South Wales. Yesterday, Premier Fay delayed Cabinet's final decision by a fortnight on whether or not an extra 3 weeks of daylight saving should be added to March. But he did rule out additional daylight saving at the beginning of the period in October.
Sounds a bit like being half pregnant.
Mr Murray says it's yet another instance of the Liberal Premiers sacrificing country people for city votes.
I've got kids that have got to get up in the dark to catch school buses. If they go on with this nonsense, then they have a right to be considered, at least considered, as against a race car meeting or an arts festival or any of this claptrap that goes on.
The National Party stalwart has even suggested an alternative party to his own, despite the effect it would have on the coalition.
No, it's not treasonous at all. People are making the comment to me, and as a result of that, I've made the suggestion.
New party or not, Mr Murray says the coalition will be fighting an uphill battle if it agrees to wind the clock forward for longer.
And if we're going to have 3 weeks of controversial daylight saving during an election campaign, then I think we want our heads read.
Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Camp activities revolved about the creek today with water slides, rope crossings and rapids rides on the program. The corroboree was postponed back in January due to bushfires and serves as a practice run for the Perth Jamboree later this year, when 14,000 scouts will be living out under canvas. The scouts come from the Hunter, Central and Mid-North Coast and learn to build and maintain their own campsites for the 5-day stay, as well as feed and clean themselves. Another test for some scouts is an overnight trek away from the main camp.
The Gulls wasted no time making it clear their season wasn't going to fly by unnoticed. Lakes continually bustled the Lions, refusing to give them any room to move. Dean Noonan took advantage of some slack defence, made a short break before laying the groundwork for an easy try. With a win in their sights, Lakes kept the momentum rolling to finish easy winners and move into the premiership lead on percentages.
Several hundred painstakingly maintained MGs have travelled from around the country to Newcastle for the 25th anniversary meeting. Today the cars were presented in concours condition, the occasional passing shower taking a little sheen off immaculately restored classics. Over the next few days the MGs will also compete in motorcana, hill climb and economy runs. Relatives of the MG founder Cecil Kimber, who are visiting from England, say it still amazes them to think that the design of a disabled broke ink seller has left such a legacy of fun and friendship.
It's the first year the Breakers have operated their own coaching camp and there hasn't been any shortage of willing participants. 4 first graders are passing on a few hints on how the youngsters can improve their game, and already they claim they can see changes in their pupils.
From yesterday, from just one day of coaching, that we've done the same exercise today and they've improved, 10%. And if they can improve by the end of the week, and that's what I keep saying to them, that they improve every day and they learn something by the end of the week, well, then it's all been a success.
In local circles, the Breakers are pretty highly regarded. However, Bobby Newmoff wasn't sure whether he was being mobbed because he was a star or just as a payback for being a hard taskmaster. Newmoff concentrated on attacking skills, teaching how to feign a move to get around the last line of defence. And there was plenty of emphasis on the importance of teamwork. The clinic continues for the rest of the week at Mitre 10 Stadium.
Meet the Russells, Rhonda, Rodney and grandmother Old Rita. They live in an inner city park, collecting the rubbish thrown away by big people. Then there's the long-lost relative from a nearby dump who has a speech problem. The Russells overhear plans by developers to destroy their home. As the plot unfolds, the family thinks up a plan. A Russell in the Bushes is the Footlice Theatre Company's latest school holiday production, on stage at Fort Scratchley every day until Saturday.
As the sun set over Charlestown's Ferris Oval, the training sessions started to hot up for the city's rep side. There has been little time to prepare for the country championships, with the side only named some weeks ago and players having club commitments. The team went through a rigorous session of drills and moves, with a punishment of push-ups and incentive to get it right the first time. It was an uphill battle for some players just to be fit for the weekend. League doctor John Hollingsworth tested the aches and pains of Cessnock hooker Jamie Forbes, Maitland winger Brett Christensen and South Newcastle 5'8" Brett Botham. All passed their physicals, giving Newcastle renewed confidence it can win 4 games straight to win the knockout. The tilt at the championships will start on Saturday with the first clash against Northern Rivers. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Unused and suffering from neglect for many years, Latec House is to undergo a transformation. Architect Ed Duke has had plans in the pipeline for some time. Now Council has given the go-ahead to convert the building into City West apartments.
On the top of the building there are 2-storey penthouses, there are 4 of them. Then there are 8 floors of serviced apartments. On the ground floor there's a coffee shop and management areas, and then car parking below that.
Given its proximity to Honeysuckle and the Central Business District, developers claim the site's location will be just one drawcard for travelling tenants.
There are families who come to town for holiday or that sort of thing. They don't want to go and stay in a motel or a hotel because of the cost, but also because these units have kitchens and they have bedrooms.
Despite the average cost of a penthouse at around $400,000, developers expect no shortage of investors.
We're not talking about a lot of money, and there are many people that have around $500,000 that they'd love to get 15% return on. There are quite a few people that I know who, once they've seen the numbers, will be very interested in taking an equity.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
Former world champions Heather Mackay and Jeff Hunt watched as Australia's best 100 young players battled it out in Newcastle's Junior Squash Championships. The tournament is one of only 3 in the country selectors used to choose the Australian team to compete in the Junior World Championships to be held in New Zealand in August. This helped attract the best under-19s to 13s players from throughout the country. Despite the tough competition, Newcastle players were impressive, with Heidi Mather making it through to the under-17 girls final to be played tomorrow, with 6 of the 8 other locals making it to the consolation finals. Meanwhile, the Newcastle University's women's team is looking a strong chance in the Eastern Conference University Games. The local women beat Sydney in its first round by 2-1. The men weren't as impressive, going down 3-0 by the University of Technology. The Eastern Conference Games attracted teams from 8 universities in New South Wales, with Canberra also represented. The finals will be played on Friday, with the top 5 teams from the men's and women's to qualify for the Australian University Games to be held at Wollongong in September.